Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS, authentic, real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
3, 2, 1, and we're back. We have received a lot of questions, a lot of inquiries. An enormous number of you have shown your interest in the ethical real estate professional designation. And this designation is going to be all about exclusive buyer's agency. And you're going to learn more about this on today's podcast. But if you want to get a jump on that, just go to ethicalrealestateprofessional.com and take a peek at the launch site. And remember, if you want to get on the list to be invited to the launch of this, which is a webinar which is coming up, make sure you text the word buyer, B-U-Y-E-R, to 47372. Do that right away. But what we did is we created Ethical Real Estate Professional for you so that you would have Ethical Real Estate Professional in the presentation we created for you show your value for you. Because here's the reality of it. Buyer's agents who have, frankly, been able to live off the entitlement of the included buyer agent commission, those days are over. There's a lot of people that's still in the industry, kind of amazing, because we live and breathe this every day, and a lot of you regular listeners do as well. Most of the industry still has no clue there's a change to buyer's agency. Small, medium-sized brokerages, they've yet to really change their how they're doing business. They're not really requiring the buyer's agencies be signed. All these things. All this is going to flush out over the next few months as people realize that this is an actual new guideline, and the ramifications of not getting an exclusive sign are really onerous, especially if you're one of the larger brokerages which is party to the settlement. So remember, first of all, definitely text the word buyer to 47372 and get on the list. But here's really what it comes down to. If you're a buyer's agent, you now have to show your value as a buyer's agent like never before. I'm not saying you haven't had to show your value in the past, but now you really, really do, because you're going to have to ask that buyer to sign an exclusive with you. And part of that's going to be they're obligating themselves to pay your commission, which has always been an entitlement to the transaction up until about 120 days ago. The seller was paying it. In essence, you could argue semantics, but the reality of it is the buyer was not signing anything, obligating themselves to pay the commission. Now you, dear agent, who's primarily a buyer's agent, you're now going to be meeting with buyers. And that buyer is going to have to basically sign a form before you can work with them. These are the new guidelines. And part of that form is going to be that they have to pay you whatever you decide your commission is going to be, your fee, whatever you want to call it. That is the new reality. How many of you are already doing that? How many of you are working with buyers right now where you haven't gotten an exclusive signed? Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. If you're with one of the big brokerages, listen to what I'm telling you. One of the brokerages that was part of the settlement that does over $2 billion in volume, I think it was in 2023. Here's what's going to happen. You are going to sell a house to a buyer. Everyone's going to be happy. Seller, buyer, listing agent, everyone's going to be happy. Title company, escrow company. The buyer agent commission is going to be wired over to, or a check's going to be given, and you're going to be, okay, business as usual. I got paid. I did my job. Then you're going to take that check, or that wire is going to show up at your broker's office, and the broker is going to check the file. Is there an exclusive signed? Was there a carve out in the contract through, as a concession for the buyer agent commission? And when it's not there, which we expect that not to be there at least 30% of the time, when it's not there, that means that money that you were paid for your work, you are not going to be able to get. That money is going to be sent back to the essentially the title escrow company and basically given back to the seller. That's what's going to actually happen. And that is the new reality. Nobody's talking about this but Julie and I, because we know what's going to happen, because we read things and talk to people. And we want you guys to all avoid that. Where you're really going to start hearing about this is probably in the news soon, but where you're really going to start experiencing it is when you hear all these agents that are absolutely devastated because they did all the work and they're not getting paid. So you need to have exclusive sign. In order for that to happen, you're going to have a clear, powerful presentation that, guess what, shows your value to that prospective buyer, just as listing agents have had to do for over 100 years. Okay, that's what we're going to be giving you an overview of on today's podcast and tomorrow's podcast. These are some of the things that you're going to have to know about in order to show your value to that prospective buyer. Working with buyers used to be mostly physical labor, did not require a lot of skill. That's a fact. Working with sellers was mostly mental labor, and it did require a lot of skill. Now, guess what? Buyer agents, it's still physical labor, and now it's mental labor as well, because you have to learn how to, sell to the buyer why you're worth whatever you think your commission is. Everything has changed. Make sure you're changing along with it.
That's right. And everybody is saying, all the headlines are saying, you must show your value, you must articulate your value, but very few of them are showing you how to actually articulate your value.
Well, you and I talked about this yesterday in the podcast, Julie. You did a little search using AI, and you wanted AI to do a search of all the major search engines like Google and whatnot for what the top search things that consumers were searching for with regards to real estate. Like that's sometimes when Julie and I are looking for inspirations for what to share with you, we go and search what other people are searching for, and we'll gear a podcast towards whatever it is, right? So we did that, and Julie was curious. I wonder what potential home buyers or sellers are most curious about, and guess what the number one answer was?
Do I have to pay a buyer's agent?
Guess what the number two answer was?
Who pays the buyer's agent?
You guys get the point? So consumers are already dialed into the fact that everything has changed with regards to buyer's agent's commission. So if you think you're just going to roll into the new year and everything's going to be business as usual and that buyer's just going to sign that exclusive buyer's agency contract with you, you are wrong. That is not going to happen. And you're going to lose that buyer. Matter of fact, that buyer's probably not even going to contact you in the first place. That's guys, I don't know how, I'm trying not to be dramatic, but the reality of it is the effects, if you're not listening to what we're saying, on your life and your business is going to be unbelievably dramatic.
Yes, and I would say there's probably 3 levels of agents thinking about this. One is complete ignorance and fighting it. I still see this today online on the different agent sites where they say things like, I'm not going to ask my 2-time buyer repeat client to sign that. They're never going to do that. The other flavor of that is, I really concentrate on listings. I've got 10 or 15 listings in inventory right now. I'm not going to worry about this. It only affects the buyer sides. To those agents, I would say, what if your seller also wants to buy? You still have to deal with this. The second category would be agents who know that this is an issue. They know they've got to articulate their value. They're searching for how to do that.
All right. So what we're going to be focusing on the rest of this podcast is Julie and I are going to have a conversation about what it actually means to show your value. Because a lot of you need to start with that very basic concept. If the idea of showing your value is merely doing what the consumer already perceives that they can do, which is searching on Zillow and Realtor.com.
Also headlines. Why do I need an agent? I've already got Zillow. I can find my own house.
But the reality of it is, and let's just you and I have a frank conversation about this.
Sure.
We're not going to use your notes. I just rather just keep this raw.
That's fine.
Because it's already top of mind for us. Yeah. Is the reality of it is that most of you don't do anything more than just look in the MLS. That's the truth.
That's why they struggle with how do I show my value? You might feel very strongly that you do a great job with buyers, and you probably do. But when you have to actually get a signature that asks them if it's not covered as a concession from the seller, that they're going to actually have to pay you, well, that's a different kind of demonstrating your value, isn't it?
You have to show, you're going to have to explain to them. One of our guarantees that we're showing you guys how to use an ethical real estate professional is the Beyond the MLS Search Guarantee. And we're also giving you a 19-point plan on what you're going to show the buyer you're doing to try to find them a home. So again, this is all under the guise of showing your value. So the presentation that's included in Ethical Real Estate Professional, what it is going to do, it's going to do the heavy lifting for you. And I'm going to slightly switch gears for you. And actually I'm not. I'm going to stay on task. I was going to give you guys a listing example, but I can, buyer's example works anyway. So here's how this is actually going to work out. Welcome to your new reality. You're going to be competing for every buyer that you have. You think, well, your friends and your centers of influence and whatnot, you're right. Those are going to be easy leads to get, but they're not necessarily going to want to work with you when you hit them over the head with this, obligation for them to pay 2 or 3% commission. And you don't know how to sell it to them as to why they should obligate themselves to pay that commission. Oh, and by the way, dear listener, you don't have a choice. You have to get the exclusive sign. You have to explain to them why you're worth the commission. And if you don't, and they don't sign it, and let's say you do sell them a house, you're not getting paid.
Pause for a second. The way that a lot of agents are doing it now, I would contend, is not showing their value. Here's what they do. It's the law. You have to sign it. Everybody sign it. Doesn't matter who you work with, you're going to have to sign it. And then 2 or 3 days later, they post on social media saying, I can't believe I didn't get the signature back. This person has transacted with me, or this is my best friend, or whatever. That's not a presentation, sending it over and saying, sign it because you have to.
That's right. It's not. In matter of fact, it's offensive. It's disrespectful.
You'll drive them away, actually.
You will drive them away, even your centers of influence and past clients. And here's what's going to happen. There's going to be a bifurcation, the splitting into two. Remember, imagine a log, and you just hit it with an axe, and the log gets split into two. Half the log is going to be the way that agents have tried to operate forever. They're the ones that are going to be in denial. That's the log part that's going to go into the fireplace, right? And the other half is the log that's going to live on, and maybe even plant more trees. Because what's going to happen is the fact that, can logs plant more trees? I think they can.
Maybe if they release seeds.
Yeah, there you go. Well, maybe not the best analogy, but you guys get the idea.
Light the market on fire. How about that?
Okay, there you go. Well, so there's going to be two types of agents. Agents that know how to truly present as a professional and get the exclusive sign, just like there's, they have done it forever on the listing side of the transaction, and agents that don't. So imagine like when Julie and I listed real estate, and all of you have been coaching clients of ours for years. One of the reasons that a lot of you join is because we do have a really kick-ass listing presentation, pre-listing pack, the whole process. So what we did, and I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but on our seller side of things, it's a 7-step listing process. The first step is generate the lead. The second step is pre-qualify. The third step is send the pre-listing pack. Then it's actually go on the listing appointment and present, obviously get the contract signed, negotiate, and close. So that's the 7-step listing process. What we did is created something almost exactly like that on the buyer side. So what Ethical Real Estate Professional is going to do, it's going to show you how to generate the buyer lead. And frankly, generating buyer leads is easy. Number 2, it's going to show you how to pre-qualify that buyer lead. You're going to know whether they're working with someone else. You're going to know what their lender is. You're going to know all the things. And this is a very, very elegant script that's based on questions. You're going to have that as part of the Ethical Real Estate Professional. After you pre-qualify them, you're going to set an appointment to meet with them at their house, at Starbucks, wherever, and then you're going to send over the presentation. Now, the presentation is what, frankly, has been taken most of the time. It is going to be the knockout punch, even for the low or no skilled agent, because in our presentation, which is 18 or 19 pages, it is going to answer all the gnarly questions that you guys live in fear of having asked of you by the prospective buyer. The presentation is going to talk about commission. It's going to talk about how you're going to get paid. It's going to talk about risk reversal guarantees. I'll give you guys an example. Now, you can use all of these or you can choose not to, but one of the guarantees we have is, what's it called, Julie? The one where they buy or sell with me? No. If they don't like the house.
Love it or leave it guarantee.
Love it or leave it or guarantee. Okay, thank you. We have a total of 7 USPs, unique selling propositions. How to show your value, we've done it for you. So for example, if you, Mr. Buyer, when you're working exclusively with me as an Ethical Real Estate Professional agent, and you decide the house that we find for you, you love it, you buy it, 6 months from now, for whatever reason, up to 6 months, you decide it's not for you, and you can change it to your listener to 90 days or 30 days or 12 months, whatever you want to do. If you decide the house isn't for you, I will sell the house for you for free. Now, you can do carve-outs and things like that just to protect yourself, but why are we asking you or suggesting that you offer this? Julie and I offered this on the thousands and thousands of real estate transactions we did, and never once did anyone take it up.
Nope.
Matter of fact, Julie, on any of my coaching clients, I can't think of one.
Me neither.
Okay, so what it does is it makes you different in the eyes of the consumer. You're so confident that they're going to love the house that they have purchased through you that you will guarantee it or you'll sell it for them for free. What's more powerful than that? And then there's also a lot of information on mortgages. We talked yesterday a lot about assumable mortgages. So you're going to be able to educate them on all kinds of different things. And again, there's like a communications guarantee. There's a lot of things in there that when you are presenting this to the prospective buyer and they read through those pages, they're going to be impressed that you actually have your shit together and you're an Ethical Real Estate Professional agent. Go look at the website, ethicalrealestateprofessional.com, by the way. Go check out the site. Okay, they're not only going to be impressed that you are an ethical real estate professional, you have the designation. That by itself will get you essentially the business 99% of the time, just because you're an ethical real estate professional and maybe your competitor is not. But the presentation is absolutely the Mike Tyson in the 80s knockout punch, because you're going to deliver this presentation. The buyer's going to see it. It's going to answer all the questions that they don't frankly want to even ask you because they're confrontational, a lot of them. How is your commission paid, Bob? What happens if what happens, Bob, if I go and I sign this with you, but I end up buying a for sale by owner? Or what happens if I sign with you and I end up buying a new construction home, right? All the things we've answered for you in this presentation. That is the heart of the Ethical Real Estate Professional exclusive buyer's agency.
That is how you articulate your value. So let's go back to something we hovered on for a second ago, where you might have buyers that say, well, I can just find the house on my own. All you ever do is write it up or whatever. So you have the beyond the MLS search guarantee as one of your USPs. I think we'll get into that more tomorrow because this was going to be a two-part. We'll do that tomorrow. So beyond the MLS, like for example, does a normal buyer know how to find an assumable mortgage that they could potentially buy? No. Do they typically talk to for sale by owners? Not usually. Do they know how to find probate leads? Nope. So this is just one of your USP's unique selling propositions that show your value. Now, to Tim's point about it being the Mike Tyson knockout punch presentation, if you have done all of the things that we teach you to do in Ethical Real Estate Professional, and you have this exclusive designation which shows your value, and you still have a buyer who's not going to sign, that's okay. They probably were not that serious anyway. Because once you show your value and they say, no, not for me, just say next.
Well, we're going to teach you to weed those types out. So when you generate the lead and you pre-qualify them, in their process of pre-qualifying them, and this is like foreign language to most agents who work with buyers. You never pre-qualified a buyer. You know you haven't. So you're going to be asking them questions. How long have you been looking for a home? This is like 3/4 of the way in the end of the script. How long have you been looking for a home, Mr. Buyer? Well, I've been looking for about 90 days. 90 days, that's fantastic. So in the amount of time, have you seen anything you've liked? Well, no, not really. Or, whatever their answer is, there's different ways you can go in the script. Well, so Mr. Buyer, just so that I'm clear, if I were to show you a home and you've already known what they're asking for, they're looking for a 4-bedroom, they're looking up to $1 million, they want a pool, all the things. So Mr. Buyer, if I were to show you a house that met all your criteria, let's say it's not a 10 out of 10, but it's the perfect house for you. And it was move-in ready. The price was everything you're expecting, all the things. On a scale of 1 to 10, Mr. Buyer, where would you rate your motivation to buy that house today? Even if it's full asking price. Well, I'd rate it probably a 7. Well, 7, I appreciate that. That's an interesting answer. So what would it take to get you to a 10? Well, to get me to a 10, I'd have to make sure that we sold our old house first. Or I'd have to make sure that I got the job transfer, the raise, or I cleared up the problem on my credit report, whatever it is. You see what we're doing? We're helping you guys ask the questions that, frankly, you should have been asking all the way along, so you can weed out the buyers that are actually going to transact and set aside and nurture a little bit the ones that aren't. That's what the pre-qualification process is. So once they get past the script of answering these questions, and this is already written out. And again, I think there's 30 questions. There's more questions. If you find out they have a house to sell, then there's up to 30 questions. But if there's no house to sell, it's 11 or 12. It doesn't take a long time. And if they're not willing to answer the questions, you shouldn't be working with them. You shouldn't show them a single house if they're not willing to answer the questions. If they're not willing to be pre-qualified, they're not actual buyers. And Julie said, if they're not willing to sign the contract, you obviously have saved yourself a lot of anguish because they probably weren't real buyers. But your real job is to weed them out before you actually send them the presentation or even meet with them the first time, or, for the first time, because you get your time back. You guys understand? So what we're going to teach you is a complete sales approach to professionalize the buyer agent side of the business. Those of you who don't have this skill set, even when you have kick-ass buyers, and you're just basically hammering them over the head with this onerous-looking, nasty document saying they have to pay 3%, how many of them are actually going to sign that? None of them are. And what if all of a sudden the seller decides that they don't want to pay the buyer agent commission? What are you going to do then? We're going to teach you how to solve for all that in Ethical Real Estate Professional. Remember, text the word buyer, B-U-Y-E-R, to 47372.
That's right. So with the designation, we're not just handing you a whole bunch of content and saying good luck to you. We're showing you how to use that. Tim gave you a great demonstration a second ago with how to use the buyer pre-qualification script. It also includes how to handle objections like, well, when I answer I'm a 7, well, what would make you a 10? Well, I'm really waiting for rates to come down. There's a page in there talking about 3 or 4 different ways to get the rate down. Not just assumables like we talked about yesterday, but also how does an adjustable rate mortgage work? How do using points buy down work? How does working with a builder get your interest rate down? It helps you, yes, weed them out, the ones that aren't serious, but when they give you a logical objection, remember the definition of an objection is a question in the mind of the prospect. If they say, well, I've been on the fence, I have seen a lot of houses that I've liked, well, why haven't you pulled the trigger? Well, I'm waiting for rates to come below 6.5% or below 6.25%. If there's a way that I can achieve that for you and we found the right house, would that make you a 10? Well, yes, it would. How do we do that? We teach you how to have those conversations so that you're not summarily just ruling people out just because they had an unanswered question.
Well, but also the most important thing is the presentation in particular is going to answer the questions about, again, I'm going to repeat this because it's worth repeating, about how you're going to get paid. It's going to answer the questions about what happens if the buyer isn't happy with the services you're providing.
All the what ifs.
All the what ifs, right? The thing, so like Julie and I have been doing this coaching and training thing forever, right? And we know the reason that most agents never become listing agents isn't because they can't or don't want to. It's because they don't have the sales skills and they want to avoid anything that remotely resembles confrontation. You guys, I think you're probably agreeing with me. You don't want to have to deal with someone saying, what makes you different than Bob down the street? Why should I pay this commission when Bob's willing to list it for 1%? What, all the what ifs. And that's the reason that most agents, when they do list something, they're listing something with a very close friend or a family member. But when you go beyond those low-hanging apples on your tree and you start actually having to be competitive, that's requiring real sales skills. And if you look at the people in your marketplace that are the dominant listing agents, they're the ones that have developed the real sales skills. That same thing is now true with buyer's agency too. You're going to, like before, when you went out to list a house, you got the exclusive listing contract signed. That was your objective. Now, when you meet with a buyer, after you generated the lead, pre-qualified them, you're going to be getting the exclusive buyer agency signed. So you've been listing homes in the past. Now you're going to be listing buyers. And I have news for you. That's fantastic. Because that means the buyer's agents are not going to, it's going to save you guys so much time wasting time with people that are unmotivated or financially unable to purchase. That's what this new guideline has done for all of you. It's forced you to become more professional, but the output of it is if you act urgently and become an ethical real estate professional designee, you're going to have a huge point of differentiation, which will give you an unfair advantage in the marketplace. Remember, text the word buyer to 47372.
All right. So yes, you make excellent points there. And, there are some of our listeners who have been trying to present and trying to not just send it over and say, well, you have to sign it because it's required now. And this addresses some of you too, because what I have heard on coaching calls and from the coaches and reading online different agent stuff is that when the objection comes up, what if it's not covered in a concession? What if it's not included from the seller? What are agents doing? They're saying, oh, well, I guess I'll just work for free then. I won't hold you to anything.
Yeah, this kind of
you
stuff.
You shouldn't have to do that.
No, but I mean, all these things. And what, Julie, honestly, I'm really mortified by the realities that I've discovered in the last 2 weeks. You've been right there with me.
Yes.
When we've been privately presenting ethical real estate professional to various brokers and leaders and people that, frankly, I thought were more knowledgeable about the scale of this problem. And with one exception, and I'll give you the call out, Leo Perea, who's the CEO of eXp Realty, he has an absolute 100% clarity on what's actually happening. And I was very impressed, frankly. Nobody that I talked to other than Leo, nobody had any grasp on how big of a problem this is going to be. I don't even know what the hell they're thinking. So I am speechless. That's the reality of it. Yesterday, I spent, 2 or 3 hours. On the day before, I spent probably 6 or 8 hours just talking with different folks. I wanted to, read the room as far as like what they're thinking. And what they were thinking is absolutely nothing. That's what they were thinking. Like I'm asking, so when you have a commission that comes in off a buyer's agent side and there's no exclusive side, what are you planning on doing? And they had no response. They would say nothing to me. They'd say, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you can't pay that commission out because it wasn't on the settlement statement, or even if it wasn't, there's no exclusive contract signed. Well, I'll just tell the buyer agent to go back. This is the kind of thing I heard, by the way, and this is illegal. Mm-hmm. I'll just tell the buyer agent to go back and get that paperwork signed after the closing. Okay, illegal. Okay, but those are the types of things I was hearing. Do you guys have any idea the negative ramifications that are going to happen from essentially people waking up to the realities of what Julie and I have been warning you guys about since we first learned about these lawsuits clear back in 2019? Do you have any idea how big of a problem this is going to be in the industry? The spring market, I'm guessing probably at least, like most brokerages, 50 to 60% of all their transactions come from buyer side transactions. I would venture a guess that of those transactions, half won't have exclusive signed, which means half shouldn't be paid out to the buyer's agents who actually did the work to put the buyer in contract. I hope I'm wrong, but I bet I'm not. I bet it's going to be that bad. Is the industry ready for that? Nope. Are agents ready for that? Absolutely not. Why isn't anyone else other than Julie and I warning all of you guys about this? Why? Why are we the only ones that are verbalizing it to this extent? I know why. Because they don't know what to do. The industry doesn't know what to do. They're not letting, you guys are all counting on your industry leaders, on your brokers and your office managers and your team leaders to tell you what to do. They don't know what's happening, and so they don't know what to do. We're telling you what to do. We're giving you the solution. And if you are in a leadership position, you want to have an in-depth call with me on this, and you want Julie and I to kind of ramp you up as fast as we can, just text me directly at 512-758-0206. If you're a Zillow Flex agent, and you've got an army of buyer agents working for you, I hope you're really thinking hard about what I'm saying. You might get that Zillow lead where you're going to have to pay a 40% buyer agent commission, but how are you going to go about, referral fee, sorry. How are you going to go, 40% commission would be nice. Referral fee. How are you going to go about teaching your buyer's agents how to get the exclusive sign? You're just going to fling it on the buyer and tell the buyer just to sign it? That's your plan? It's not going to work. Can you imagine listing a house with the seller and walking in with the paperwork, dropping it on the table with your 6 or 7 or 8% commission, whatever the hell it is, and saying, sign the paperwork? You imagine a listing agent doing that? Well, I know that if they did, they sure as hell wouldn't get the listing. Nope. The same thing's going to happen on the buyer side. This is the new reality. Julie, honestly, I'm kind of out of words with regards to getting these guys to pay attention to this, and I'm genuinely fearful of what's going to happen when you see these brokers start, their quarterly results, when you read their 10Ks or their K10s, 10Ks, and you're seeing actually what's happened to profitability. This is really going to play out into 2025. Yeah,
and unfortunately, I think it's going to take transaction by transaction, because I was thinking about, what's causing some of this. A lot of this, there are still agents and even team leaders who think that this is they don't even understand the lawsuit in the first place. Somebody asked on one of the podcasts, what inning are we in? And the answer was baseball was just invented, right? It's too early, because what happens is there are buyer's agents out there that maybe haven't transacted in 90 days. Now they've got somebody, maybe their best friend from, they're doing their transaction, and they don't find out until it's so far down the pipe.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys some advanced nerd knowledge. No, you're 100%. So this is the reason it's extra difficult. And if I'm not getting all my facts right, forgive me. We're kind of learning on the job, just as you guys are. I've only been told about the settlement agreements that these big brokerages have had to sign. So if you're a broker and you did over $2 billion in volume, I think it was in 2022, thank you. You were obligated, you got sued by the plaintiff's attorneys. If you wanted to be part of the settlement, you had to come up with some huge amount of money. NAR came up with $400 million, $50 million, all these big, huge numbers, all right? Part of those agreements, so $2 billion or above, the biggest brokers in the country, they had to pay in an enormous amount of money, and then they had to basically also, this is what I'm being told, I've been told this 3, maybe 4 times, is the plaintiff's attorneys in these settlements have written into the agreements that at will, they can ask to basically audit the broker's files, looking for closed buyer side transactions and making sure that the exclusives were in there. The plaintiff's attorneys are not stupid. They know that most buyer's agents are not going to have the skill set to get exclusive signed. The closings might still pay out because the reason I'm about to tell you, and if that buyer's agent got paid without the exclusive in the file, that is going to open up that litigation again. They are laying wait for this to actually happen. Now, if you're a brokerage that did less than $2 billion in 2022, the party that's going to be policing you, and I'm not sure how this is even going to work, is going to be your local MLS. Personally, I don't think the local MLSs are going to do any kind of job at all, because there's no incentive structure for them to do it. In other words, what happens if they start being real, onerous with agents and brokerages and starting throwing out fines? Well, the agents and the brokerages are the MLS's customers, and those agents and the brokers aren't going to put up with that for very long. And there is nothing in the settlement that specifically cites what the fees can be or what the fines can be and all of this. So if you want to know where the willy-nilly is going to be happening, it's the brokerages that did less than $2 billion in volume. That's our opinion, but that's most likely what's going to happen, because there's going to be no real ramifications that's going to be anywhere near the scale of the larger brokerages. The larger brokerages in these settlements are absolutely ending up with the short end of the stick in every meaningful way, which means that the smaller brokerages might literally still do business as normal as they usually have, and they might still close a transaction. They might not look for an exclusive, like say you sold a house for Bob and Steve's real estate. It was their listing. You brought the buyer. You didn't have an exclusive sign. Bob and Steve didn't ask you to, have the exclusive sign. There was no carve out in the contract in terms of a concession from the seller to the buyer to pay your buyer agent commission. Bob and Steve, they're not paying attention. So they just operate as if they always have. They pay out half the commission to the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent money goes to the buyer's agent's brokerage. The buyer's agent brokerage then, who's one of these larger brokerages, then sees that the commission was paid without an exclusive sign. If that larger brokerage pays that commission to that buyer's agent, that means that larger brokerage is in violation of the agreement. This is the kind of Mickey Mouse and absolute nightmarish scenarios that we're going to start seeing and experiencing within the next 180 days or less. You have to learn how to get the exclusive sign. We have done the heavy lifting for you. Text the word buyer to 47372.
I don't know why anybody would work with any buyer right now without that having been done. I don't know why you would put yourself at risk like that.
It's not just risking losing money. It's risking losing your license.
That's right. And in fact, because, we've been living nonstop with our research on this, what I have seen of the fines and fees that have happened, they're very specific that it's not, to your point, it's not just the agent, it's the agent and the broker. And it's not just the fine, but it's also a potential suspension of the license of the broker as well.
Well, you just hover there.
Yeah.
So the broker, if you're $2 billion and above,
yeah,
the broker is going to be held liable.
That's right.
Not the agent. So the broker is on the hook for that buyer's agent commission being paid out to the buyer's agent without the exclusive in the file. The broker is going to get resued, not the agent.
And there's no workaround for that, by
Nope.
the way. Typing away like the mad cat on the keyboard and being outraged is not a plan. There's no workaround to that. And the plaintiff's attorneys have been very public saying, I think Inman ran a story saying they're watching you, right? They've been very public about saying that they are absolutely keeping an eye on things.
Julie, those private jets don't pay for their own fuel.
No, they don't.
Exactly. I mean, can you imagine how many private jets were sold to plaintiff's attorneys on this
Things need
case?
service now.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Those things are expensive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So hopefully you're understanding the depth and the breadth of really what we're dealing with. Julie and I have been in real estate since the early 90s. And we've been through, arguably 4 different recessions. Prior to this, the biggest issue, the industry went through was definitely the housing crash. Mm-hmm. But I'm here to tell you, the housing crash and, all the upside down owners and all the rest of it, nothing compared to this as it could affect the real estate industry. And I'm looking for someone to say, Tim, you have not thought through this thoroughly. You're not seeing this. You don't know that. I'm looking for a reason to, frankly, not have to be as energized by this, because it is a little bit, I think, frankly, I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety, a lot of anxiety maybe even, for our listeners, because I don't want them to suffer.
Because we have walked in their shoes. We know. We have a whole, our coaching clients, our coaches, we know what it feels like to go through that. And the thing is, you talked about the housing crash, that happened to consumers, et cetera, and it was horrible. But this is more like a potential agent and sales crash. This is much more, I think you and I are absorbing a lot of it because we feel for them. We've been there. We've done that.
I know why I am. Okay. I thought about this
Talk about
today.
that.
Well, it's because I'm pissed off, honestly.
Yeah, I think we both are really
I'm
pissy
honestly,
about this.
I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what this reminds me of. I remember back when the Gulf War happened, back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And we were selling
We were in
real
college,
estate.
yeah.
And we were just basically kind of sort of coaching. But I remember when that happened, I was waiting for someone in the real estate industry to lead. Mm-hmm. I was waiting for somebody, some big guru or even the NAR. Nobody led.
It was like that after 9/11 too.
It was exactly like that at 9/11. 9/11, so as soon as there's any kind of real calamity that happens to the real estate industry, all these air quoting leaders, they don't know what the hell to do. That's the reason they don't say anything. They all navel gaze, wondering what their next step should be, and they don't really take any action. That's the reason they don't give you guys any instructions. And then there was the housing crash. Julie and I started talking about the housing crash. We knew it was coming in late 2005 and 2006.
Before it crashed.
No, nobody wanted to talk about it.
But why? Because we're on the line. We have all of you guys.
Because their incentive structure is not to scare you. If a big broker starts telling you what I just told you, what are you guys going to do? You're going to create a lot of work for them. They're going to have to do a lot of triaging of emotions. But you know what? We're not a big broker. We're going to tell you the truth. And then there's, like the housing crash. Julie and I took a leadership position there as well. And then frankly, eventually the government did. Julie and I, we're definitely not partisan. And frankly, what Obama did was fantastic. If it wasn't for what Obama did and Tim Geithner did and all the rest of it and the FTC and all these different, 3-letter acronym government agencies, they really turned housing around. And Julie and I worked with a lot of them, teaching you guys how to do short sales and like that. We were doing, short sale training and working with the FHA and all these things. You guys have been with us for a long time. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. Now, there's been other little things, but never once do I remember any clear leader in the industry saying, okay, this is the problem, this is what we should be doing. Or if they did, they weren't telling you the truth because they didn't want to deal with the ramifications of your emotions. That is 100% the truth. I could tell you guys exact stories, but I won't because some of these people are still my friends, Julie and I's friends, and some of our close friends of leaders that knew they weren't telling the truth when things were happening, but didn't want to do it because they were fearful of what how their agents would react. The same thing is that same thing's happening now, or even worse, they don't know it's happening. And they're going to wait for the numbers to come in and to see what I'm saying is true. One of those two things, or both of those two things can be true at once. And I personally think it's both things. Those that know don't know what to do, and those that and the rest, frankly, don't know, and they're going to learn the hard way when their agents start waking up to no commission checks. That's the reality that no one's sharing with you guys. You need to do us a favor and help us get the word out about this. Share this podcast with as many agents that frankly, the agents you want to have stay in business, your friends. Don't share this
Don't mention it to the agents.
Don't share this with anyone you don't like, right? But all the agents that you like, please share this podcast. Your broker, your office manager, everybody. Help us to make this podcast viral so we can get the word out about what's actually happening in the real estate market. And our solution and your solution is become a member of the Ethical Real Estate Professional. The program is not available yet. Some of you have been messaging, asking for early access. We're not going to do it. We're only going to sell 2,500 designations for Ethical Real Estate Professional Exclusive Buyer's Agent. It's exclusive. We're only going to sell 2,500. That's all. That's all she wrote, Billy Goat. And then after 2,500 are secured, then that program is going to be closed. And we're going to open the doors to the program in the next couple of weeks. The only way to get on the invite list is text the word buyer to 47372. This is not a podcast based on the notes that Julie and I prepared, but this is top of mind because frankly, we're obviously very fired up about this. We need you to be too, because if you're not, that means you're going to be one of the agents that learns the hard way.
Yeah, I think collectively we need to save the market from the spring dumpster fire that it could be headed for. If you hear passion in our voices, if you hear frustration from us, it is because we are trying to move all of you towards success and away from this scary stuff that is a reality. I'd much rather talk. We're going to do a fun Friday to alleviate some of this stress. We're going to talk about Halloween realtor pop buys because you guys still have to go out there and earn some more business. But yeah, if you hear stress from us, it's because we feel stressed for you and we're trying to get you guys in front of this. So make sure that you come along with us and don't be a procrastinator.
Yep, text the word buyer to 47372. And please remember, do share today's podcast. Help me to make today's show viral. Help us do the right thing for the industry and get the word out. Frankly, for a lot of agents, it's maybe already too late. But for you, you're a leader, you're listening. This podcast is, 6,000, 7,000, 10,000 downloads per day. Help us get the word out so we frankly can save the industry. Your local market is dependent on professionalism coming from the agents. And if consumers start to be really confused, that's going to adversely, which they already are based on the searching we've been doing, that's going to adversely affect the spring market. It's going to adversely affect your ability to do real estate. And I'll tell you who's going to clean up in this. The more confusion, the better. I'll tell you who it is, the listing agents. The listing agents out there are absolutely making more money than they ever have before because what they're doing is keeping both sides of the commission. They're not paying out buyer's agent commissions. And the listing agent isn't going to say, hey, Bob, I got this offer. It's awesome, but you didn't ask for a concession. You think they're going to coach you guys on how to basically minimize the commission that they could otherwise make from the transaction? No. You're just going to do all the work and you're not going to get paid. That's what's actually happening. And is anyone else telling you guys that other than Julie and I? Nope. So you know what to do. Text the word buyer to 47372. And when you do, you'll be invited to the launch event, which should be happening in the next couple of weeks. Have a great day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.